It's all about futuristic urban development. House over 1 million people. But there's one major point that wasn't addressed in the speech. One of the driest places on Earth. Water scarcity is ubiquitous in the Middle East. While a global water crisis is looming over many countries, it's affecting this region more than most. Exponential population increases have led to the tricky situation of growing demand for an ever scarcer resource. Mitigate the problematic consequences. Have predominantly relied on an and highly controversial measure. Desalination. The principle of the man-made desalination process is simple. Suck water out of the ocean, separate it from its salt, and deliver the fresh water wherever it's needed. Mostly for human consumption or irrigation. Until now, there have been two main ways of doing this. Is the more traditional method, involving heating up salt water and then cooling the vapor to make fresh water. Salt water is pushed through a semi-permeable membrane to separate the salt. Both methods still come at a huge cost. In the Middle East, this mainly means fossil fuels. Is usually pumped back into the ocean. Sinks to the bottom. If there are simply no alternatives available. Is betting heavily on. Due to rapid population growth and growing fears of Nile droughts. Is meant to ease tensions with upstream Ethiopia. To fill the already existing gap. The Inland Sea is Israel's biggest freshwater reservoir. Has more than doubled since the early 2000s. 2000. The leader of the pack is without doubt Saudi Arabia. By far the largest of the few countries in the world without a single river. With very little fresh water at its disposal, yet awash in oil money. Uses fossil fuels to generate the vast amount of electricity needed. But all this is supposed to change. Located in the sparsely populated Northwest. Along the shores of the Red Sea. Among its key concepts are sustainability and environmental responsibility. What's the substance behind these fancy catchphrases? The huge demand for a scarce resource like fresh water in the desert. Covers a cauldron of roughly the same size. The theory behind it is actually quite simple. As a result, highly pressurized steam is released and condenses as fresh water, which is then piped to reservoirs and irrigation channels. Yet so far, the question is still unanswered. Helping to prevent damage caused to marine life. By not discharging any brine into the sea. Contains substances that can be put to good use in other industrial processes. It still remains to be seen whether this actually works. To be trialed on an industrial scale. Will serve as a test case. Struggling to generate environmentally safe and sustainable sources of fresh water. It's hard to predict how much of this vision will turn out to be true. Desalination, despite all its issues, isn't going anywhere. As it gets cheaper and water scarcity becomes ever more threatening, the industry will continue to grow. Countries in the Middle East will rely on it in order to reverse decades of environmental damage. Could restore lost ecosystems. In the past, the UK was full of wilderness and home to brown bears, lynx and wolves, all of which are now extinct in the country. Meanwhile, around 70% of the UK's land area is used for agriculture, which has decimated large parts of the ecosystem. 70%. This juxtaposition has led many to question apex predators like the great wolf. Letting nature take care of itself. In the Netherlands, animals graze free and totally unassisted by humans. Involves the reintroduction of species. The presence of a keystone species like the Iberian lynx in Spain helps to restore missing or dysfunctional ecosystem processes. Bears a high chance of uncertain impacts due to the potential risks connected to in an attempt to transform their farm into a biodiversity hotspot. Having the beavers has been an absolute delight. There's always something going on. Any day of the week, it's a bit different from the day before. Beavers have been dubbed the ultimate environmental engineers, capable of alleviating flooding, sparking new life into barren wilderness, for a fraction of the cost of other methods. Biodiversity has increased hugely in the wetlands. Elsewhere in the UK, large herbivores like bison graze in very unique ways. Kill selected trees by chewing their bark. This generates deadwood and allows light to reach the woodland floor, providing a three-dimensional habitat for other species. 3. Create large sandpits through their dust bathing. Serve as an inspiration for. Consider a more nature-based approach. The concept first gained mainstream appeal in North America's Yellowstone National Park. In 1995, Yellowstone National Park famously reintroduced gray wolves. 1995. The project proved that when you take away the large animals, you are left with a radically different ecosystem. By reintroducing the wolves, deer populations fell. But much more significantly, this allowed vegetation to recover, which changed the geography of the rivers, creating optimum habitats for a variety of species. Beavers built dams that created habitats for otters and ducks. This phenomenon is known as the activity of an apex predator at the top of the food chain, stimulates the growth of several other animal species, enriches biodiversity. As the rewilding movement in the UK continues to grow, many have called for the reintroduction of wolves, eating the young tree shoots before they could mature, seeking permission to bring wolves over from. The main resistance comes from local farmers and landowners, who are worried about their livestock and personal safety, currently being at a standstill. With a plethora of success stories,